now, and we can go ahead and call the meeting to order since we got quorum. Welcome everybody to the March SBE Chapter 25 meeting. Go ahead and start I'll start with a quick announcement. One of the things I'm trying to do is create additional positions and kind of fill the different committee positions that we have open. To that end, I went ahead and made the decision to combine both the social and program committee into one, and both Jacob and Bob Selecki have agreed to co-chair that. So moving forward, we're going to be working with them on finding people to come in on varying degrees of topics, radio, TV, and anything in between. And I'll help out where I can too with other topics like ST 2110 and some of the other formats that are kind of new and coming out. But thank you to Bob and to Jacob both for willingness to take that on. That's a huge help to rest of us when it comes to trying to figure out what to bring into the meetings or who to bring into the meetings to talk about different topics.
Yeah.
With that, Doug, what's Treasurer's report?
Okay, we have $5,821.01, and our most recent expenditure was somewhere around $111 to renew our ability to do Zoom.
Perfect. We don't spend a lot, so that's nice. Okay, I don't see Secretary here, and I don't see Bill here, so guess we can just go ahead and move on to Aaron. Aaron is from ENCO, and he is going to talk about virtualization, cloud backups, and a lot of the topic that really kind of encompasses both TV and radio. So, Aaron, I will let you take it away if you want to introduce yourself, and then you feel free to go ahead and go on.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me on. So my name is Aaron Johnson. I've been with ENCO for since 2012. Before that, actually, I'm going to do a screen share right now. Before that, I was in radio primarily for, almost 25 years. I did a little bit of everything from running, the board in the middle of the night to later on, I was the engineer and taking care of the automation side of things. So yeah, look forward to talking with you all. Do you see my screen right now?
I sure do.
Yep, okay. I do too.
Okay, great. So basically what I want to talk about, like what you said, is virtualization, the cloud, and how we're taking advantage of that, and how other people can take advantage of that. Be it if you're, really no matter what your philosophy is, if you love bare metal, there's a place for the cloud and virtualization. And obviously if you love virtualization, the cloud and all that, things are moving in your direction, at least at a snail's pace. So, our theory is at ENCO and many others as well is, taking advantage of the cloud. And there's plenty of places that you really can use it no matter what you're doing, be it, DR, disaster recovery, be it, bringing in more people, especially over the past few years with everything that's happened, being able to incorporate more of the people, even when they're working at home in your workflow, all of those things, the cloud is becoming more and more important. And at the very least, just having access to your system remotely is very, very important. Move ahead here. So, what we've been doing, like in the very beginning, was very simple, especially at the beginning of COVID. This was a big thing for us and others as well, not just us, but just being able to access a system remotely. And the way we've tried to handle that is do it in the most open way as possible. And that is through, a web interface. So no matter what you're running, be it an iPhone, iPad, your Windows laptop, another computer, or even in some cases, another computer in the office, being able to access the on-air interface, and other aspects, being able to do voice tracks and all those kinds of things. But just being able to access the system through an interface that is open as possible and gives them the ability to do all of the basics that they would need to do, like voice tracking, library, database management, log playlist management, be able to do basic editing. All of those things have become more and more needed, and to do those things, not having to go to the studio. But the way we've like really in the beginning have marketed this for us and for others is this the ability to have a access to the system. And even there's like a lot of different levels of the way people's workflow works. So we have everything from people that are running regular systems in their studios. This is true whether it's television, radio, and we do it across platform as well. So more and more of our systems are in radio and television, and in the television market we're also doing closed captioning. More and more of that is happening in the cloud, and then being able to access it through even if they have a regular hardware system in their studio, being able to access that through a web browser so they can monitor what's going on, and control their systems and all of that. So like basically through our system and many others, just the ability to access the system. In many cases it'll be where there's a standard system, and this could be a system that's virtualized or just regular computer systems in the studios. But basically what we're providing now is the ability to have a backup in the cloud, and then have that backup be synchronized to the main studio. And the main studio may be regular systems, or it could be a virtualized system, or it could even be a cloud system in another platform, in another location in the country. So basically, the play out can happen pretty much anywhere. And so it could be, like I said, with regular systems. It could be in the cloud using, audio over IP, or it could be a combination thereof. And so, we're constantly not only backing up and pushing the content, or even pulling the content to the cloud. But basically, we can either push or pull and do a sync between the two sites, and then if necessary, then even play out from the cloud. And so, in essence, what we're doing is having a virtual machine that's running, in the cloud, if it's necessary to be in the cloud, or just to a regular system that's running on a PC in a studio. We can keep both, not only the database, all the material, playlists, logs, and etc., logs, all of that synced, but we can also run them in sync. So if we ever do need to fail over to another system, we can do that. So when we do fail over, we're running basically at the same point we were with the main system.
So then you guys actually copy the music files and everything else from libraries into the cloud as well. So that's how
Yeah.
you get that kind of synchronization between
Yep.
physical environment and cloud environment.
Yeah, I mean, it goes beyond even just syncing the content. You know, if there's the bandwidth for it, you know, you can, and it doesn't take a tremendous amount, but we can even keep the logs or the playlists, what we call them, playing in sync. So if they did fail over, the listener may not even notice hardly any difference between you know, when they do the failover to the other system.
Okay, so then it's kind of like a true like hardware backup, except it's in the cloud. Because like you'd have
Yeah.
old hardware backups of playlists and desynchronization across
Yep.
two independent systems. So this is just independent, but anywhere, accessed anywhere.
Yep. Yep. And you know, the other great thing is that, you know, anyone can that you want can have access to the backup system. And we've, you know, come up with ways, and the hardware is getting to the point now where the latency, you know, is much better. It's still there, but you know, with our cloud system, it's basically a virtual machine running in the cloud. So it's either VMware or Hyper-V, you
Okay.
know, and then we're a Windows platform. So a version of Windows is running, or a version of Windows, and our software is running in the cloud. It's actually running our Windows main software platform. But there's an HTML5 layer that has access to it. So you can control it, you know, from anywhere.
Okay.
Then the basics, you know, then there's the audio is going to be some form of audio over IP. So, you know, soon to be 2110 compliant.
Okay.
But so anything from Dante to, you know, Ravenna to Axia to Wheatstone to, you know, there's even free stuff that's available. And then we're using these are just some of our applications and the web versions of them. But in the end, you know, it's basically you know, to a user, even in the cloud, them using our systems and being at a regular system, you know, bare metal system with a computer, is very, very similar. They don't notice the difference. You know, and when we do failover, even that is not very noticeable to them. You know, their workflow is the same.
Okay.
So we also have kind of a bridge between the two, and that is what we call the ENCO one. But there's other, you know, I know Wide Orbit's doing much the same to a degree. It's running, you know, bare metal, a server, and we have a lot of clients doing it, you know, running a server from us or their own, and running our systems in a virtual machine in their own hardware. And then they'll have either other location acting as the backup, or the cloud as a backup. But basically what our system is running on is a fully redundant piece of hardware. It's basically two servers that are running in lockstep with one another. It's still a Windows platform. It's running a virtual machine in the system, and every client side, every client, you know, every studio has a thin client that is acting as basically just a bridge to the virtual machine. All of the audio is coming out of this piece of hardware, you know, so, you know, be it Axia, Wheatstone, or others, you know, all the audio is coming from this fully redundant piece of hardware. And basically gives them what this gives you is a platform that gives you 99% plus uptime. And it also simplifies installation a lot, because really all of the commissioning, well, not all the commissioning, but a good part of the commissioning, like 80% of the commissioning, is all done, by us, or at least done before it has to be installed. So you can have all of these thin clients created, or all these VMs created, have this one piece of hardware installed at your facility or another facility that's offsite, and all of the systems are running off of this single machine. And so any one studio can control any other studio. It's all being audio over IP what it is. It allows for really any studio being brought up anywhere, or any system, be it television or radio or whatever, be brought up anywhere and controlled wherever you want it.
It sounds
Okay.
like it's more user interface fault tolerant, where
Right.
the whole UI, you could just blow it out in one studio and just move it to another.
Exactly. And that's another thing too, is if you get a virus, or there's ransomware that gets installed, you can have a backup copy of your VM and just blow that one that got infected out, and copy the new one in, and you're back and running within minutes, rather than hours or days even. So what I just brought up now is sort of just the basic diagram of how this all works. So you have the central ENCO 1 machine. The system has a layer, a software layer, and our particular platform, Stratus, has a software level that keeps both. There's like basically two servers in one, keeps both running in lockstep. Literally, when one side, if it fails, if you have a hard drive that fails, a motherboard that fails, a power supply fail, the other side will take over, and it's literally in lockstep. So when it does, if it ever does fail over, the listener never hears it. So basically, like I said, you have the central server, you have your audio over IP network, you have your still regular network, between other devices that may be on the network. But basically, all of the services are running on this one particular piece of hardware.
So
Scares the hell out of me still.
Well, it's understandable. And I honestly, there's places where this is very appropriate, and other places where it's not. In the end, and just to be quite upfront, the number one thing we battle against is, one, there's always latency in running things in a virtual environment. It could be 1/100th of a millisecond, but it's still there. But there are instances where this makes a lot of sense. If you need to deploy something quickly, easily, like I said, at least in the very end, you can get things set up, and you're dealing with, after you do get it installed, you're just dealing with the network. And then of course you have to interface it with all of the different hardware you have in the studios. But there are scenarios where it makes sense, but quite frankly, it's not for everyone. And it's really, I'm not going to say it's not for me, but I'm more of a hardware guy. I like bare metal, and but it does have its place. It does. We have a lot of clients, even running their systems totally in the cloud. It makes sense for them, because they're not doing a live show, they're doing everything virtual, voice tracked or pre-recorded, and latency doesn't really make a difference. And there's totally ways of getting around latency now. You just have to have the infrastructure for it. And if you do have the infrastructure for it, it does cost more money. But as a there, like I said, with viruses and even with hardware costs, and for the ease of maintenance, this does definitely have its place.
So then I know in the TV world, you would see a lot of master control hubbing where everything is for those stations that are ran out of regional locations. Like I know, for example, Nexstar has a hub here in Indianapolis.
Right.
So with something like this, do you guys see anything like that happening on the radio side where they're kind of doing more of a hub for those stations that may not have a whole lot of live interaction, but like recorded voice tracks and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, even in
Mhm.
television, because in the end, even if it's not, obviously it's not going to be their primary, but as a disaster recovery solution, yeah, it's totally something that we've had some of our clients inquire about it, because they need it may not even be their secondary backup, it may be their last layer of defense. They may have a third layer, and they want something that is going to assure them that they can get what they want on, something to air.
Okay.
And so, it makes perfect sense for them. Yeah, we have like clients using our television automation as a backup, and they're not doing it in the cloud yet, but a lot of times it's virtualized in even in their hardware or hardware that we provide. And so we may have 12 different channels playing out in a virtualized system, over a region, just for their disaster recovery. And this is true too with things like closed captioning. It may not be ideal because of latency, but they can have, we have a product called ENCO that does real-time captioning and what we call offline captioning, but be able to process closed captions in about twice real time, if it's a pre-produced video. And they're choosing, rather than have the hardware at their facility, at least have a backup, or they're have it run in a cloud, just because they don't have to worry about the hardware.
I will throw a plug out here real fast. I've worked with Encaption, and I've also worked with a few of the other competitor products. And I will say that the speed and accuracy of Encaption is actually really good. It's impressive.
That's good to hear.
I was actually going to say I've seen it. I think it was debuted at like the Wisconsin or conference, or used live a few times
Right.
there. And I think there's a few videos if anybody's interested. There's some live demos of it on the WBA YouTube channel.
Yeah, I got to test it side by side because we had a competitor product and then we had the Encaption, and we put them side by side with Evert's caption encoders, and was watching the output as we were feeding in our feed from the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just watching it accuracy wise, it was getting things right. Speed wise, it was nailing it, especially compared to the competitor software, which seemed to have difficulties sometimes with pronunciations of people's certain pronunciations of words.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing, is it is in a sense trainable. You can give it a word list and schedule those word lists based on, so if you have a sporting event, let's say, you can put in all of the names of the players, or any unusual words that may use, or if for a localized location, if you have a street name that sounds like a particular word but is spelled in a different kind of way than usual, you can add those to the dictionary basically.
But it's nice to know that if your hardware platform did fail, then you at least could have a backup cloud, even
Right,
if there is some
right,
latency with it. At least then, you have some form of captioning going out,
right.
even if it is a little bit behind what viewers would normally expect.
Yeah, and just as I mean, this sort of an ENCO plug, but at NAB, we're coming out with our next generation of in caption platform that is going to be able to be run in more different more places, because until recently we've been basically if somebody is we've only sold it as hardware that you would install in your facility. Now that will be changing, and during our release we'll have cloud solutions and the ability to do even more in even like editing of captions, like almost in real time. So you can like watch the captions go by, and if you see a misspelled word or a misspelled name, you can change it on the fly.
That would be nice, especially
So
if those times where somebody says a word that the system interprets differently and you need to catch it before,
right,
the FCC comes knocking on your door.
exactly.
Mhm.
But it's kind of neat that you guys got that tied into with the virtualization, for disaster recovery. So that way
Yeah,
it's part of automation and everything else. If you have that, then you have that ability to fail over and, continue to
yeah,
have captioning.
right. Yeah, and the thing is too is like as we've gone forward, and I'm sure as you've seen forward too, or seen to more and more of media is becoming more integrated with one another. So it's not like we have very many. Honestly, we only have one, but we even have we have one radio station and have looked towards others to adding captions to their feed, just so they can add it to their website. In the case I'm thinking of, they're doing it for the blind, but as things are going on, it's going to be more of an expectation to do speech to text,
Mhm.
and even the other thing to add on to it, the ability to translate is becoming more important. So
Oh, yeah.
we're the one thing we're doing, we even sell it now, but we're going to be doing it more is let's say you have a meeting and you want to a city meeting and you have to you have a large Spanish language population to have a secondary uh, uh, captioning stream in Spanish or whatever other language that may be popular, you know, Asian languages and so forth. At this point now, we're able to, there's about 35 plus different languages that we can translate to from English, and even do others like, French to Portuguese or English to, you know, Asian languages. So those kinds of things, being able to do those uh, as regular bare metal systems, but then also do them in the cloud has, become very valuable and crosses our clients in ways that you wouldn't think of. Like I said, more and more we've had inquiries from radio stations to be able to, like, even like a church service, they'll want to be able to translate that their church service from one language to another. So
So is this
um,
happening in real time or is it near real time?
it's real time.
Okay.
Like when you do a translation, it does take longer. It's going through, basically at this point, everything, is getting captioned from whatever language is the original. So it doesn't have to be English, but whatever the original language that's spoken. And then it takes some processing time to do the translation. So you're talking, if you're talking longer than what would be normal, toward far as the FCC goes, but it's not that much longer. You're talking like about from the beginning to end, maybe like a 10, 11 a second a delay.
Okay, and what's the accuracy?
It depends on the quality, but I mean,
Okay.
in most cases, they've been very good. It does depend on the language, and quite frankly, it's hard to get people to do like basically checking those languages. But in the ones that we've been able to test and go over, this like Spanish, French, Portuguese, Middle Eastern languages have been quite good. And then those really, the improvement of them has been quite recent. The just hate to say it, but our like translation engine is gotten to the point where at the very beginning, like French has the way they place the verbs, nouns, and all of that is the basic grammar is different than English. Where at first it was basically just giving you, okay, this word, but it actually is doing the grammar now. So it's much, within the last year, there's been like, I would say it's 100% better than, especially as far as grammar goes, than it used to be.
Okay. So then it has no issues. And like, I'll use French as the example. I'll beat up on French for a minute here because of the way they say numbers. So that it has no
Right.
issues with if the way, because I know with French, for example, 32 would be like 20 plus 12. And that's how you
Right.
would say it would be 21 and then whatever 12
Right.
is. So
Right.
that it actually translates that without any hiccups or anything.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's with, I mean, oh gosh, the way everyone says, numbers, like you said, is different, and yeah. So within all of those, we've worked on the engine, and it's the grammar is quite good, actually very good. So, and so we're adding languages all the time. Like I said, we're we have quite a lot of clients now using it, and it's very, very accurate. I mean, I would say, unless you have bad audio, you're talking, 97 plus accuracy. But within ideal conditions, where you don't have music or other audio, we'd always like to have mix minus, so we're getting a direct feed of the mic. But even the areas where we do have music, now we've actually just added within the last couple months, when there's music playing, we'll have like a musical note showing within the caption, and we're able to do also, basically we can identify speakers. So if you have like a let's say, a city council meeting or something, or a meeting with, multiple people, we can identify who's talking, and then like say, Carl, if blah, 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 Mary, da, 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 so we can identify the speakers as well.
So then I'll ask another question about that. Then we can move back onto the disaster recovery.
Yeah.
So with that, are you seeing an application where that's maybe used in council chambers or something like that, where they're actually taking feeds in from meetings and then putting it out over like a cablecast system or Cablevision system?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also we've found Pennsylvania uses us for their governmental meetings. law firms and banks use us as well.
Oh, for like,
basic
corporate executive meetings and stuff?
yeah, yeah,
That's fascinating.
yeah,
I would,
yeah.
I mean, the application is there, and I know FCC has rules regarding closed captioning on live streams, but it's something that I wouldn't have ever expected to see with, boardrooms utilizing closed captioning for their meetings, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's quite the market, and there's not as many transcribers anymore. There's quite the market in banks and companies to to get a transcription of meetings, and then have them searchable and and available, for them, for as long as they need. And they,
Fascinating.
yeah, and the other kind of area where that's related, that uses this similar technology, is we're getting into I can't say who the client is, but they have a sports show where the client swears a lot. So we're doing a kind of automatic beeping out the words they don't want to go to air. And so it's using the kind of the same encaption engine to basically bleep out words, or make it silent. If there's back in the day we call it bleepinator, we had an early version, but I'm not sure what they're going to call it yet, but that's coming soon also.
A virtual 7-second button.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But does it still caption it correctly?
Well, in this, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We got to have those. Yeah. We got to have the swear words on the, in the captions. Yeah. No. Yeah, this at this point for this client, it's just, they just want to be able to automatically bleep out, words that they want to, add to the library. So
I will say, as a side note here, that I have seen the in-caption bad words list, and it is quite extensive and honestly quite hilarious at times too.
yeah.
I mean, there is some creative use of the English language in those words, but they have a lot of them in there, even words that even combinations of words that I would have never even thought anybody would do.
And you can add, if there's something we didn't think of, you can add to it as well. So, yeah.
So then, for dad disaster recovery.
Yes. So, in the end, so like, you'll have these virtualized systems in the cloud, or it could be in your own cloud environment. Basically, when necessary, stream out to the transmitter site or streaming site. Normally we use Telos Zipstream to do that, but there's a number of different ways we can go about that. And like I said, the audio can be, basically in the end, the audio playout will be whatever audio over IP solution that you choose. We're running still a Windows environment in the cloud, or in the virtualized system that you have. And even running basically the same software they would be running in the studio. It just happens to be in the cloud, and all of the different pieces, far as being able to, not in real time, but close to it, push the changes out as needed, and then keep the content relatively, if not perfectly, in sync. Kind of depends on your network or the streaming provider you may have, or they may have. Some of the things we've already kind of talked about, but yeah, like I said, it's bi-directional also. So we have like clients also, they may need to log content, and they may need to add content all the time, and they may be like clients that are spread, I should say coworkers are spread all over the place, all over the country, or all over even the world. So their main access point may be the cloud, and they'll let's say they record something, be it audio or video, record it on their local machine, and then use our web utility to upload it to the cloud, and then it'll push it to the local or to the playout system, be it, you know, in a studio or, you know, other location. And this is basically also just kind of illustrating the entire workflow. Some of the options, you know, also just like with any radio facility, you have the ability, like I said, to upload content like the Dropbox and conveyors, our utilities to ingest material from other places. The Patapult utility that's you see in the right hand side is our metadata output application that it outputs metadata to RDS to other services like a web stream or a you know, even something, you know, to a website.
So when you talk for the website side of it, it'd just basically
Yeah.
be a way for people to monitor while they're maybe like actually controlling the software, so they can kind of
Right.
hear, even if they're not in the same city, they can still hear what's going on
Right.
the station that they're controlling.
Essentially, an IceCast or a Shoutcast feed.
Exactly. I mean, it's mainly used on the really on the consumer end. So they're seeing what's playing now information, or like if it's a public station, they're seeing metadata that would be showing, like in public radio, they have this Metapub metadata platform that allows you to, let's say, during their content, you know, morning edition, you'll see metadata that says, okay, this is the you'll see text that describes who the guest is, what the story is, you know, and maybe even what's coming up next.
Okay.
And this, you know, like you were talking about before, you know, there's a lot of ways of getting the content out and encoding it to whatever codec that you need, just depending on, you know, what you're doing, what kind of radio station, television station, where we need to output the data to. Far as like the cloud that we use a company called Stream Guys, and they can we have a number of stations that, like I said, are you know, using us for their backup, but also their primary playout. And we can you know, basically do both audio and video in the cloud. So it's not just a radio solution, it can be a television solution as well. Obviously in big markets, they're not going to do that, but like I said before, far as, you know, having a backup, disaster recovery, it can be an appropriate way to go.
So on the TV side of it, in terms of holding, you know, different amounts of shows and everything else, do you guys just kind of have evergreens that people keep normally, so that way they have something to throw on air, or is it like, you know, whole days worth of content?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. We have both. I would say, like in the disaster recovery that we normally do, it's semi-evergreen.
Okay.
Usually they'll like maybe update it weekly. Other places will update it daily. And then other places, you know, it depends on what their platform is, how much bandwidth they have, what their budget is, will do it, you know, hourly or a couple hours, every couple hours, you know. And so within our system, we have all of the applications that would be needed to push out the content, you know, as needed, as long as they have the bandwidth for it.
Okay.
But that's, you know, that's basically it. Any questions you guys have about yeah, what we've talked about, or anything new that you wanted to bring up?
I've got nothing that I haven't already been kind of asking along the way, just as kind of things pop up on here. Tom or
Cool.
Steve, you guys have anything?
So do you have clients that that test their disaster recovery periodically, like once a quarter or something like that? That sure would give me some peace of mind, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the size, and honestly, that's information I don't often get, but I know in a couple instances, we have large clients that will do it monthly, others quarterly, some even yearly. But they're pretty on top of it. But honestly, we don't always hear how often they do it. They're many cases kind of tight-lipped on how they handle it. And then quite frankly, in radio, we're quite thrilled that they have any disaster recovery, workflow at all,
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Well,
yeah.
if it didn't go well, you'd hear about it, I assume. 'Cause
Yeah.
they'd have to fix something about it.
Actually, if it went bad, you probably wouldn't hear it at all.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
working for a
Yes.
manufacturer who sells audio codecs, as I'm sure Aaron, thank you for not mentioning my competitors, by the way. Thank you. But anyhow, hearing some of that about disaster recovery. Oh yeah, I get calls all the time on the weekend from radio clients about, hey, my STL's down. How do I get this back up,
Yeah.
et cetera? It
Right.
happens. So it's a different mindset right now, but I do see people moving towards what Aaron is saying, disaster recovery, which is
Yeah.
great.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, our past, events with COVID and so forth have kind of forced companies to think about it. Once
yeah.
they kind of thought about, how are we going to get people involved and how are we going to get to air or back to air, it has, in a way forced them to think about, what are we going to do if something fails? What are we going to do? I have a computer from 2011. Is this going to stay on the air forever? Probably not. What are we going to do? If something, happens. So we're in a way, it's been not a good thing, of course, but it has made people think about what are we going to do, yeah.
I know when I started in both radio and TV, one of the things I got told was nothing's worse than silence and darkness. You don't
Right.
want either one of those because that means you're losing listeners or viewers and you're losing money at the same time.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
There's
it's good.
no doubt about it.
It's good to see companies are starting to go towards more disaster recovery stuff just because the ease and availability of the cloud makes it more attractive and more cost effective to do something like this. So that way you don't run into a situation where you have nothing and you have viewers who are turning the dial because, well, there's
Right.
nothing to listen to.
Right. Well, and then the other aspect is that now, I mean, not that it's cheap or anything, but it's just very doable now. I mean, you can, like with our system, even, we have people just running, I can say like, the NHL is testing with us this week the ability to run one of our, it's basically a shot box kind of idea, but an audio play out kind of thing they use for going in and out of breaks. They're going to test running out in AWS, and they're doing it also. They're still going to have a main like hardware system, but just to have something that they can bring up as a backup, is going to keep them on the air and keep their advertisers happy and all that kind of thing.
I know the mentality I always had when it came to backup systems was it's the difference between paying for it up front and having it when you need it or not having it at all and possibly losing money because you decided to save money up front.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
Yep.
and the whole question of disaster recovery can get pretty complicated. I'm sure it's a complicated sales job to work to help talk people through this. The question of, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? and also the question of what's the most likely to happen.
Right.
And okay, and okay, if this happens, how do we get around it? Everything's fine until the UPS blows up, and then you have no rack room whatsoever. So you need it delivered directly to the transmitter, and things like that. Or having that ENCO 1, 2 devices in one thing is fine until the pipe breaks over that rack.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and there's so much stuff to think about. You've got hard work to do.
Well, and I mean, actually, and I should have brought it up, is that, I mean, what I recommend to people, you know, and just with my years in media, you know, even if you have a simple system that's running, that can be run or running in the transmitter site, and you can push content to it, you know, and most every radio and television automation system nowadays has some form of, you know, being able to push out content to somewhere else. So, you know, if you, God forbid, something bad happens, you can play something, you know, that's relatively recent. So you're not, you know, losing dollars, and the advertisers are staying relatively happy and all of that. And that can be quite, you know, really very affordable. So disaster recovery doesn't have to be this hundreds of $1,000s thing. It doesn't even have to be tens of thousands of dollars. It just, you have to, you know, think what your risk tolerance is, and you know, being just willing to do it and think about it, not, you know, push it under the rug.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Especially, like I said, I've dealt with other systems with disaster recovery, and it was always kind of that conversation of, you know, yeah, it's important to have it because when you need it, it's there. And yeah, you may have to have the capital expenditure up front, but again, it's there when you need it. So that way it helps reduce the amount of other losses that you suffer from losing, you know, the ability to put out content and, you know, keep your advertisers happy.
Right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, go ahead,
Have
Tom.
you run into any situations where a station or an entity will save money on insurance because they have a good backup plan, and so they don't need much business interruption insurance, or at least they need less of it?
Yeah, I know they at least need less of it. What the numbers are, I really don't have a good idea. They tell me, excuse me, that it helps on their side, but you know, I couldn't give you a number.
I mean, knowing that it helps reduce it some is good too,
Yeah.
because then even still, it makes it more attractive business wise to say,
Right.
okay, yeah, you know, we're spending money, but we're also saving money over here at the exact same time.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Tom, Steve, you guys got any more questions? Okay, I'd ask Jacob if he has any questions, but he already knows Aaron, so you know he knows how to get those questions answered.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Aaron, for coming in and talking with us. It was
Yeah, thank you.
interesting to go over your guys' you know, yeah, definitely applause. Interesting to go over the disaster recovery products and to also kind of get a deep dive into in-caption and what's happening with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for inviting us, and yeah, let me know if we can do anything else with you.
Absolutely, we certainly will. Before we end the meeting, one other thing I will announce is that in April, it's looking like we're going to have Chuck Kelly actually talk to the group. He was nice enough to volunteer with a number of us, including myself, going to NAB. So he's going to be doing the presentation. And then I'm going to ask our new vice chair, Bill, to take over the meeting and run that for everybody. So that'll be an interesting experience for everybody to kind of get to meet him and see how he runs meetings. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for attending, and anybody that's watching afterwards, thank you for watching. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Thanks
Take
again,
care.
Aaron. Take care,
You
guys.
bet.
See you in Vegas.
Yes.